and she's just getting super drunk and she's just not well at all. And at one point she says that like her and Orlando Bloom have been flirting. She's like straddling him, I think, and like sitting on top of him. And then she goes in to like lean in closer to his face, but she ends up like headbutting him and then knocking her head back and hitting something else. And she like passes out. Well. We are back in the saddle, back together again, ready to record, ready to sit before you and do a little deep dive on Lily Allen.
It's been a minute since we've done a deep dive on the show, and people say, pop apologists, bring back the deep dives. And you know what? We are listening to your requests. And who better to deep dive than Lily Allen? We are truly living in a Lily Allen renaissance right now.
We are.
With West End Girl.
It's true. It's true.
I feel like for a lot of millennial girlies, Lily Allen her music was super popular a long time ago, but she kind of took a step back for a while. And so we might want to kind of re-familiarize ourselves with who exactly this woman is.
Yeah, she's traveled a long road, at times a hard road. I would just like to come before you and tell you that I did spend the entire day today listening to her memoir.
Okay.
So I am completely steeped in all of her, all of her tales, her life story, everything. And I feel like there's just a lot more to her story and to her upbringing than I obviously knew about. And I think for most people, like they won't know everything about her.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of you for two reasons. One, you've really done the work. So thank you. You're showing up today very prepared. Two, you pronounced it memoir and not memoir. Which is
we've gotten in trouble for the way we've said.
You always say memoir, like you
memoir.
It's always the most theatrical pronunciation of memoir.
Well, it's a lot sexier sounding than biography, autobiography.
It's like when someone says fiancé instead of fiancé.
Excuse me for trying to add some audio flair to our audio only job.
No, we appreciate it. But without further ado, should we get into the life and loves of Lily Allen?
Yeah, I think that once again, it's a hard road she's been on. And maybe this is because I've read the book, but we're so caught up in the David Harbour of it all, but there was just a lot of other crazy shit that happened even before David Harbour. So yeah, let's get into it. I don't want to give anything away too soon.
Okay, well, Lily Allen was born in London on May 2nd, 1985.
My wedding anniversary, everybody.
Oh my gosh, that is so germane. Thank you.
I can't see that date without saying it. Also, the anniversary of when Osama bin Laden was assassinated.
I thought you were going to have some anniversary between you and Ben, and I was just thinking, God help us all.
Anyway, it's an important date for a lot of reasons.
Okay. Two huge moments in American history.
My marriage. Speaking of that.
Marriage, UBL getting taken out. Oh, and Lily Allen being born.
Yeah.
May 2nd is huge. Well, 1985. So really none of this happened on the same day, but May 2nd. Okay, let's move forward. Please.
Skip past the first sentence.
Dear God. Into a show business family. So her father is the actor and comedian Keith Allen, and her mother, Allison Owen, is a movie producer. So Lily describes her childhood as very turbulent. Her father left when she was just 4 years old, and her early life was not one of wealth or luxury. It was financially strained in her early years, with Lily, her mother, and her siblings actually living in government housing when she was a child. So Lily said, I lived in a council flat for the first 9 years of my life, eating spaghetti on toast. As her mother's career grew, the family's financial state became a lot more stable. So in spite of this early financial struggle, given that both of her parents were in the entertainment industry, she did have some privilege in terms of being able to be connected to the powers that be in the music industry, or some powers that be.
Yeah, I would say, she's not a Nepo baby in the sense that she just had a silver spoon in her mouth her entire life and just, was just
she's not Sophia Richie-Grange.
Yeah, she's not Sophia Richie-Grange, whose clothing line is now available at Revolve. But she definitely was well connected.
Yeah.
She was well connected from the get-go. So while now Lily has a good relationship with her mother, although it's had its struggles, she's continued to have a pretty strained relationship with her father. She said, my dad walked out on me when I was 4. My dad was at Latitude, an English music festival, when I headlined, and didn't even come to see me. I probably spent more time walking my dogs than I have with my dad my entire life.
I
I have a couple stories here from her book I want to share.
okay, please do. But I just really want to, double tap on this moment where she's headlining a music festival her dad is at, and he doesn't even come to see her.
Yeah, so okay, well, I'll get to that story first. So her dad like comes to chat with her before she's about to go like headline, and he says, "Oh, I got to go off and do other stuff." And she's like, "Aren't you going to stay for my show?" And he just like has some excuse for why he's not going to stay.
Oh, for
And it was
real.
like in that one moment, I think she just really realized how like the one person she wanted to like be proud of her and watch her perform like wasn't interested. So she says that she has one memory. She says my dad left when I was 4. She has one memory of her parents together.
Okay.
And it is of her mom being in bed and there being a man in her bed.
That's not her father.
That is her father.
Oh,
that's her only memory of her parents being together.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy. Her dad also was kind of a philanderer. Actually, he was a philanderer, not kind of.
Yeah.
In fact, there was like a time when her mom was like about to start on a big show. She had a big production job. And her dad said, "Hey, I'll take the kids on a holiday for the week and you can just focus on work and we'll get them out of your hair." And her mom was like so grateful and was like, that would be so great. Thank you. And Lily says that they get to this hotel. I think they were staying somewhere like on the coast of France, in the south of France. And the woman staying at the hotel room next to them just happened to be somebody her dad worked with, another woman.
Okay.
And that it was like they did one of those like, "Oh my gosh, so crazy. You're here too. Well, let's hang out together while we're both on holiday with whatever." And obviously they had actually planned the whole thing because they were having an affair.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? And he ended up marrying her soon thereafter after they got a divorce.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
that marriage didn't last very long. She actually also says that her dad has maybe 8 or 9 kids across different women too.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Well, Keith Allen, not exactly on our Mount Rushmore of monogamy, but we must press forward.
So she has an older sister, Sarah,
Yeah.
and she has 2 younger siblings, Alfie and Rebecca. You might know Alfie from Game of Thrones. He plays Theon Greyjoy. Do you remember? You've watched Game of Thrones?
I have not watched Game of Thrones.
You should watch it. It's great. Anyway, she has more siblings, but I think she's the closest to Sarah and Alfie.
Gotcha. So as a child, Lily felt lonely and often rebellious. She attended 13 different schools and she was frequently expelled for misbehavior like smoking and drinking. But at age 11, a teacher overheard her singing Oasis's Wonderwall and was so impressed that she gave Lily voice lessons and a solo in the school's concert, where the formerly angry little girl moved the audience to tears. This encouragement ended up being a turning point for her, and she realized that music could give her a positive outlet and could have a really good effect on people, providing a source of validation that she really craved.
Yeah, she really bounced around a lot, and she ended up even dropping out at the age of 15. She says she regrets this going on. She says, "I'm not educated. I left school when I was 15. I don't even have one GCSE. It's the standard exam in British education. Not one qualification, and I am ashamed of it. I really wanted to go into midwifery or obstetrics because that was something that really interested me, but because I didn't have any diplomas or GCSEs or A levels, it seemed too difficult, too much. I was too lazy and actually too embarrassed. I thought I'd have to go and do my A levels with a bunch of 18-year-olds, and I was already in my mid-30s. I didn't want to do that." So schooling was just really tough the entire time, and she didn't really even end up finishing it.
Yeah. She ends up going to Ibiza, actually, which sounds like a lot of fun.
Another kind of schooling, another type of learning experience.
Exactly. You know what they say? Don't ever let school get in the way of your education. And
Never.
she certainly got an education in Ibiza. She told her mom that she was on holiday with friends, but she ended up staying there alone, working at a record store, and sometimes dealing ecstasy pills to partygoers.
Yeah. There are some crazy stories from this.
Okay.
So actually, I think her mom was on vacation nearby, like in Greece maybe, but then she ended up like hopping a boat or plane to Ibiza.
Okay.
Ibiza? What do we decide to do on this podcast?
We're going to call it Ibiza on this podcast.
On this podcast, Ibiza. So she hopped on a boat, hopped on a plane, got to Ibiza, got a job at a record store, was like staying in a hostel, but then got kicked out of the hostel because she wasn't paying her bills.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
you're down on your luck when you can't pay the hostel.
And when you're 15 and dealing ecstasy.
Also a sign. Things are not going well.
Yeah. I mean, just really quite extraordinary childhood. And just, meanwhile, you and I are, 15 and we're not even allowed to see PG-13 movies.
No.
But what's interesting here is that She actually ends up meeting her first manager, George Lamb, here, and there's like a great story that actually I'm going to play from her memoir. I'm going to get my phone. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to play a little snippet here from her book where she talks about meeting her first manager, George Lamb, while she's in Ibiza, while she's on this crazy little, journey, I should say, of selling ecstasy and being 15.
Okay.
I was booted out of my room at the Welsh hostel for not paying my bill. So my drama that night became, where the fuck am I going to sleep? The problem was solved when I ran into a DJ I knew a bit called John Ulysses, who said I could stay on his sofa once he'd finished his set at a club called Es Paradis. That night, I took my suitcase to Es Paradis and got talking to a guy called George. He told me he was working the season promoting the club's space and he rented his own place for the summer. He saw my suitcase and asked me where I was staying. I've been thrown out of my hostel, I told him, but it's okay because John Ulysses has offered me his sofa. I'm staying with him tonight. No, you're not, George said. Not on your own. John Ulysses is a perv. Look, he continued, come back and stay with me. George was fit and quite a bit older than me. He was exactly my type. I assumed he was making a pass at me. I thought I was in. But George didn't come on to me. He took me back to his house and made up a bed for me on his sofa. When I woke up the next morning, he poured me a cup of coffee. I hope you don't mind, he said, but I went through your phone while you were asleep and I called your mum. I told her that I don't think you should be here anymore. I'm going to take you to the airport and put you on a plane back to London. And that's what he did. It was an amazing thing. It was one of the first times a man had done something nice for me without any sexual agenda. George was a life changer. I didn't know that then, and I didn't think about him much after that, but he held on to my number, and nearly 2 years later, he rang me at exactly the moment I needed to hear from him.
Okay. In a world full of Andrew, Mountbatten Windsors, be a fucking George. I mean, that is a gorgeous tale.
Isn't that crazy?
It's so crazy because it's just not at all where you think this is going.
No, and to be honest, it's maybe one of the very few positive tales about a male interaction in the book.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's just, a lot of tales about negative ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, I found that to be very endearing. And the fact that he was like, I hope you didn't mind. I went through your phone. I called your mom and you're getting on a plane back to London.
Because
she was 15.
I mean, 9 times out of 10, that situation would have gone the exact way she thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
So, wow.
And she was like mentally prepared for that.
I feel fortified by hearing that tale. Thank you, Chandler.
Yeah, I thought that was a great story. So anyway, they end up working together later on, which we'll get to.
Yeah. Okay, well, so in 2002, when she's 16, Lily's dad does use his industry contacts to secure her an initial record deal with London/Warner Records, but nothing comes of this deal. And it ends without her even releasing any music.
Yeah, I think we're going to get into kind of her whole perspective on the Nepo baby conversation surrounding her, because while her dad's connections did help her in some ways, they also didn't help her. I mean, record labels weren't necessarily eager to sign her because she had a reputation of being like a party girl and being involved in the hard partying scene. And so anyway, I think that like, I actually find her comments about being a Nepo baby to be quite interesting. And I think they like shed light on, why it's actually not always a good thing.
Well, yeah. So let's listen to her talk about being a Nepo baby, essentially. And one thing I want to say is it would be very interesting to have such a strained relationship with your father, who is made you a Nepo baby or has made you a Nepo baby. And also to have grown up very financially insecure and then have to carry the Nepo baby title.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like all of the downsides.
Right. And barely any upsides.
Yeah.
I mean, I have sort of complicated feelings about it, mainly because of the complicated relationship that I have with my parents. So I think that, obviously I know that I've been born into an incredibly privileged situation and I have no problem or qualms with accepting that and the opportunities that have been afforded to me. But I think that that's more of a... the class that I was born into, where I went to school and the connections that I was able to forge with people as a result of that. There are people in my family that I don't really have relationships with, so the idea that they handed things to me on a plate is sort of complicated, but whatever. I'm just happy and I'm very grateful. And
So she's also given other quotes about essentially this Nepo baby moniker. She said on X, "In childhood, we crave stability and love, nurturing. We don't care about money or proximity to power yet. Many of the Nepo babies are starved of these basic things in childhood as their parents are probably narcissistic. And it can be hard to see one's own privilege when you're still processing childhood trauma. And a lot of these kids haven't figured that out yet."
She goes on in another tweet and says, "I promise you, I'm not rooting for an industry full of people that had childhoods that look like mine. I just really think that we can't get to a real solution without identifying the real problem. As fun as it is to laugh at the kids of famous people, Nepo babies have feelings."
Yeah, I mean, it is so interesting. And that's something I really haven't considered. The idea that if you're the son or daughter of someone famous, there probably is a high degree of chance that they are a narcissist.
Yeah, and that you were starved of some pretty basic things that you should have, got as a child.
Absolutely. Another tweet, she says, "The Nepo babies y'all should be worrying about are the ones working for legal firms, the ones working for banks, and the ones working in politics. And we're talking about real world consequences and robbing people of opportunity. That's none of my business." But back to the music.
Once again, I must do a public service announcement about my Cozy Earth bedding. We got our sheets and duvet cover a while ago, but the novelty has not worn off, not even a little. Once we're under those cool, soft, temperature-regulating sheets made from viscose from bamboo, the whole day just melts away. I'm a morning person, and yet I find it very hard to leave my cocoon in the morning. The sheets wick away heat and moisture, keeping us several degrees cooler, yet still plenty cozy. I've told my mom about these sheets. I've told my friends. I won't stop yapping. We have other old sheets, and we just simply never use them. In fact, we wash everything on the same day because we cannot go a night without Cozy Earth. And the Bubble Cuddle Blanket, a plush, textured faux fur masterpiece that turns our bed into the retreat I daydream about during every stressful moment of the day. Plus, it's all totally risk-free. It comes with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. Head to CozyEarth.com and use our code POP for 40% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure to let them know you heard about Cozy Earth right here. Because your bed should be more than a place to sleep, it should be your happy place. Cozy Earth makes that possible. When it comes to holiday gifting, I always want to be that person who gives meaningful, timeless pieces. And then I end up panic buying something that ships in 2 days. So this year I'm getting ahead of it with Quince. Quince truly has something for everyone. Cashmere sweaters for $50 that look and feel designer, silk tops and skirts for all the holiday events, perfectly cut denim, and outerwear that actually keeps you warm. Their Italian wool coats are just a whole moment, tailored, soft, and the kind of thing you wear year after year. And the quality shows in every detail. The stitching, the fit, the drape, it all feels elevated and classic. I bought myself some lovely cashmere-lined leather gloves, and they are exactly what I need this season. And yes, Quince goes beyond clothing too. I recently bought a gorgeous quilt for the foot of our bed, and it just pulls the room together so well. Find gifts so good you'll want to keep them with Quince. Go to quince.com/apologist for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/apologist to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/apologist. Back to the music. So in 2004, her manager introduced her to Future Cut, and she began to write songs. And she received a small record deal in 2005 with a £25,000 budget to record an album. And this was kind of crazy because this first record deal that she actually gets, it's for 5 albums. She's like contracted to do 5 albums with them. And I thought that, I think that now knowing more about what we know about like Taylor Swift and, just like the music label, side of the industry.
Yeah, we're all an expert on music contracts.
I know I am. I just think that that's like, it's pretty insane to be like, okay, I think you probably don't know what you're getting yourself into when you sign up to do 5 albums with one record.
Well, I think that's
with one label.
That's probably what they do with these early stars, right? They just want to lock them in for as long as possible because they're going to catapult them. And the last thing they want to do is like do all this marketing and then they leave. But they obviously generally sign really bad deals when they're so young and powerless.
Yeah. So the label execs did not give her much time and attention. They focused on the larger acts like Coldplay. And without a lot of guidance from her label, she actually turned to MySpace and was like using that to get her name out. There wasn't Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok. And even Facebook and YouTube were still like in their infancy. So MySpace was really where she was uploading demo tracks that she was working on, and word spread like wildfire. And by early 2006, tens of thousands of people were streaming her songs. The lyrics were witty about everyday life, and she had 74,000 friends on MySpace, which was huge at the time. And then that buzz online led to the mainstream media paying attention. And so, in 2006, The Observer profiled her as an unsigned sensation. And by May of that same year, the music industry finally gave her creative control to finish her first record, which she did with producers like Mark Ronson and Greg Kurstin. And to just add some more context here from my reading of her book, I think that the record label was just not really caring a lot about getting her album made. They signed her, but there was not a lot of, mentorship that they were providing for her to like work with other producers or, other music people to help get her, complete record made.
Yeah.
They just did not pay her attention until there was other buzz from outside sources. And then they were like, okay, well, now we'll set you up with this person. I think it was like this famous producer or whatever from LA. And like, he can now work with you to like finish your record.
Interesting.
So her official debut single, Smile, hit the airwaves in the summer of 2006. And this was her first big hit. In Smile, which I'm sure everyone has heard, she sings about getting revenge on a cheating ex-boyfriend and watching you cry with a smile. It became the petty breakup anthem, for all of the women in the UK and the US, I'll say, all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners loved Lily's songwriting style, and by July of 2006, it hit #1 on the UK charts, eventually going double platinum. And she became one of the first artists to have their MySpace fan base really translate into real-world sales.
Yeah. Yeah, and her debut album, All Right Still, arrived that month and was both a critical and commercial success, entering the UK charts at #2 and ultimately selling over 2.6 million copies. So if you're watching on YouTube, everyone, just to let you know, we highly recommend actually watching this on Spotify because that has the full version of this episode where you can hear clips of the songs that YouTube will block due to copyright. So this version of the episode does not have any of the songs in it.
Okay, another song off this album is called Alfie, and it's about her brother. I think this is just kind of interesting to note because her brother really does not like the fact that the song exists. It's all about his laziness and constant weed smoking. And I think he still gets asked about it like in interviews.
So funny. Overall, though, critics loved All Right Still for its mixture of ska, reggae, hip-hop, and pop influences, and her lyrics that were so full of her personality, so much so that The Guardian reported that there was no distance between her music and her personality. On songs like LDN, Lily paints an observational picture of London. The city looks sunny and vibrant. Lyrics like, sun is in the sky, oh why, would I want to be anywhere else? But in each verse, she reveals the gritty realities, muggings, and homelessness lurking beneath London's surface.
By 2007, she was not performing only on big stages, but she was becoming really a staple of tabloid headlines. And we know how the British press can be unrelenting, and they certainly had their way with Lily. So she would also give these kind of unfiltered interviews, and she would speak her mind rather than any type of, sanitized PR sound bites. She said, at one point, I can be mouthy, but I'm a nice person. In the book, she talks about how she had to learn that you can't get drunk with journalists and that, you think at one point this journalist was with her and she thought he was kind of flirting with her and she thought they were just like bantering on and on. And then the next day, like the headline said otherwise, just totally painted her out to be, I think, like it was some big crazy headline about how much she loved cocaine.
Yeah.
And I think she like made a joke about cocaine. But she did love cocaine, I will say. But anyway, she just had to like learn some media hard lessons, and she said, I'm not in this business to be in the tabloids. I'm in it to make good music, Lily told The Guardian in 2006. And she was right. Behind all the tabloid photos, she was connecting with people. One review from Pitchfork said, not only does Alan deliver on the musical promise hinted at in her MySpace demos, she also acquits herself as a genuine personality with wit and attitude to spare. But don't take it from me. You know how to Google. She was always her best PR person anyway.
The album's success proved that beneath this party girl headline and fixture was really a genuine songwriting talent. One reviewer noted, it's all very well being in the papers, but if your music's rubbish, people won't buy it. The reason Alan's album has sold well is that it's stonkingly good. Lily's ability to turn her life into relatable pop songs set her apart from the formulaic pop stars of the time.
By 2008, Lily was enjoying all this commercial success during a time the UK media referred to as the year of the women in British music, alongside other artists like Adele, Duffy, Amy Winehouse, and Leona Lewis, to name a few. So in 2009, she released her second album, It's Not Me, It's You. Her sound really evolved there from heavier ska to electropop. And this is where she releases The Fear, which was her most successful song, I think we could say, or one of her most successful songs, if not the most successful. And it pokes fun at consumerism and celebrity culture, you know, from the inside of celebrity culture, from the inside of that world.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with her recently where she talked about how this is the song that she's the most proud of writing.
Yeah, and critics basically agree that this is her best song. So in The Fear, she contrasts dreamy melodies with lyrics like, I'm a weapon of massive consumption and it's not my fault, it's how I'm programmed to function, pointing a finger at both herself and the fame machine. The song's loved by critics and fans for its self-awareness, and The Guardian called The Fear one of her best songs yet, describing how it works so well because she implicates herself in the worst aspects of the fame industry. And Lily agrees with this review, since she said, I'm such a hypocrite, but that's why I love that song. It's so ironic and contradictory.
One more thing about The Fear. So she won 3 Ivor Novello awards for this song. And in the book, she talks about how this is like the award that she was the most like overjoyed to get, because this is like a musician's award. It is not about the industry or about the money power players in, you know, in it, which I think like a lot of these award ceremonies are kind of like pay to play or whatever. It's just like, it's more about the politics versus like the actual talent, you know, I dare say. And the panel of judges is like all songwriters, and it's like it's a more impressive award to win. And so anyway, like it's the UK's most prestigious music honors, and it's dedicated specifically to songwriting and composition.
It's so interesting because when we like start approaching Oscar season, a lot of times you'll hear, oh, like, you know, ex actor Ben Affleck is campaigning for this Oscar. He's, you know, in the circuit. He's going on to all of the festivals, and he's like really putting in the work to try to get this Oscar. And I feel like so many of these awards really are the product of networking.
Yeah, exactly.
And the product of, you know,
billboards.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is important to know, right? This wasn't something that her label was able to get for her.
One quick aside. I remember when I lived in LA, all of the billboards around Grammy, whatever, Oscar season, you know, for your consideration. And I was always so confused by that. I'm like, did the judges drive by here? But it really is all about like kind of the most buzzworthy, it's about the campaigning.
Yeah, absolutely. So It's Not Me, It's You, this album debuted at #1 in the UK and reached #5 on the US Billboard music charts, selling over 2 million copies, cementing her in music stardom. Other songs on the album displayed her signature blend of humor and honesty, which set her apart from other artists, as we've discussed. And this brings us to another seminal Lily Allen song, and a song that I would say she, you know, is still played a lot, especially on TikTok today, and it's the song Fuck You. So in this song, it's a deceptively upbeat melody with a message directed at bigotry and conservative politics. It was initially written as a protest against President George W. Bush. The working title was Guess Who Batman, an anagram of GWB, but Lily later noted it could be aimed at anyone who deserves the middle finger. The song has had lasting appeal, going viral again in recent years as a soundtrack to anti-Trump memes. So while Chandler was penning, you know, letters in support of George W. Bush and his decision to go to war, yes, we do have conservative parents who brainwashed Chandler when she was 7 years old or 6. And so she wrote a very funny, for anyone who has not heard the story, she wrote a hilarious letter to George W. Bush when she was sick, saying in her chicken scratch childhood handwriting, saying, I'm proud of your decision to go to war. And then there's a photo, or not a photo, there's a drawing, a stick figure drawing of the two of them. She's like, George W. Bush. Our parents must have had such a hard on for George Bush.
They did.
Because for him to figure so prominently in your 6-year-old brain.
I think what happened, if we can just go there for a moment, is that we had watched a really stirring 60 Minutes. And I felt compelled to craft a letter. So I loved 60 Minutes, even at that young age.
We discuss this letter anytime we get the chance on Pop Apologists because it is iconic. And, he wrote back So
he did. He wrote me back something really nice.
I didn't know.
That's private.
Yeah. I didn't know that presidents write back to their fan mail, or they have some, intern, basically churning out letters.
I mean, and
back,
he says,
which is
Mrs. Bush and I join you in X. I think it was from him.
Okay, so they had private correspondence, and our mom literally framed the letter.
It's still framed in our house.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, okay, let's get back to Lily, though. Actually, let's play a little Fuck You.
Okay, so now let's get into kind of what's going on behind the scenes in her personal life. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. I love the holidays. They brim with joy and excitement, but let's face it, they also bring lots of stress and worry. And in the spirit of holiday gifting, I am giving myself the gift of self-care and clarity. Taking care of your mental health is one of the best gifts you can give yourself, because sometimes you just need someone who isn't in your everyday orbit, someone who can help you sort through what's really going on. That's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp gives you access to licensed, vetted therapists who operate under a strict code of conduct, and they do all the matching for you. You just fill out a quick questionnaire, and they connect you with someone who fits your goals and your communication style. And if you've been feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just craving a little bit more perspective, BetterHelp is such a good place to start. They've served over 5 million people, have more than 30,000 licensed therapists, and their average live session rating is a 4.9 out of 5, which truly speaks for itself. This December, start a new tradition by taking care of you. Our listeners get 10% off at betterhelp.com/popapologists. That's betterhelp.com/popapologists. Revolve has fully become my go-to style destination because it fits every version of my life. Everyday outfits, date nights, random events, they simply have everything. So my cart is loaded with the most chic Helsa coat that will elevate my entire winter wardrobe. I am in love with this Helsa coat. It's got the most chic cut that will make me feel like Hailey Bieber. One thing I love about shopping on Revolve is how easy they make it. The recommended for you lists are always spot on, and they have these curated edits. So vacation, night out, special events, it will save you on a lot of time scrolling. And because it's holiday season, the Revolve holiday shop is everything. Sparkly dresses, cozy sets, chic gifts, and every trend you need for party season all in one place. Plus, Revolve has over 1,200 brands, 100,000 styles, inclusive sizing from extra extra small to 4X, new arrivals daily, and amazing customer service. Whether it's a weekend away, a big night out, or a holiday party, your dream wardrobe is just one click away. Head to revolve.com/pop, shop my edit, and take 15% off your first order with code POP. Fast 2-day shipping, easy returns. It's literally the only place you need to shop from. That's revolve.com/pop to shop my favorites and get 15% off your first order with code POP. Offer ends December 17th, so happy shopping. Okay, so now let's get into kind of what's going on behind the scenes in her personal life while, some of this music is coming out. So by the end of the 2000s, Lily has achieved, what most people can only dream of: hit records, awards, full-blown celebrity status. And at the age of just 25 in 2010, she announces that she's quitting music to focus on her personal life. And she says, I want to get married and have kids, drive them to school. She yearned for the stability that she'd missed out in childhood. And so she was ready for that stage in her life.
Yeah.
And this began with her boyfriend, Sam Cooper.
Yeah, so she, I guess, always kind of dreamed of like a quiet life in the countryside with a husband and children because of the way she grew up. And so they got pregnant. She was expecting her first child, a son they were planning to name George. And trigger warning. So, the rest of this episode, and we're about to mention pregnancy loss. And then there's also
some sexual assault.
Yeah. So just trigger warning, everyone. They were expecting their first child, a son they were planning to name George, when she gets this viral infection.
So yeah, she talks about this time, obviously, in her book. And they believe that this infection potentially started with a cavity. And so everything was going along normally in her pregnancy, and then she experienced some spotting, and the doctor said, that might, no need to really worry, but we'll just have you come in. And when they examined her, they saw that I think her cervix was like already, it was either the position or the size, like it was like ready for delivery.
Wow.
And so they said, you're not leaving this hospital until you give birth, so you're now you're going to be here, and we're going to be monitoring you, trying to keep your water from breaking.
Okay.
And so I think they even did like a stitch or something to kind of keep her, I don't know all the anatomy, I should, but whatever, I don't know, to keep her things in place,
Okay.
if you will. And she says that she felt that stitch break. Actually, she was like laughing. She felt that stitch break, and then her water broke. And that they were like, okay, well, we're going to deliver the baby. And that devastatingly, at one point the umbilical cord was wrapped around the baby's neck, and the baby was so small they could not, get the baby out manually.
Okay.
And it's so traumatic. We don't need to get into all of the details, but the baby passes away and she still has to deliver the baby.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just like this horrific experience, so devastating to have this baby that, just beyond. And this just sort of, is such a huge moment in her life. She says this was the first moment in her life where she was like, I think where like life became very real to her, where it was like, I'm a person, I'm a human being who is experiencing like very, very real pain. And it's so sad. And I can't even imagine experiencing something like that.
Yeah.
And the trauma of that physical experience.
It's unfathomable. So she actually talks a little bit about the grief after that experience. She says it's not something you get over. And she described the depth of her despair in an interview with The Guardian, where weeks after her son's death, she walked out into her garden in the pouring rain, removed all her clothes, and just lay naked on the ground and howled in grief. Despite this painful experience, Lily continued to build the family she longed for. So she and Sam became pregnant again and got married in June 2011 in a small ceremony. In November 2011, she gave birth to daughter Ethel Mary. Ethel had a difficult start. So she was born with the airway condition laryngomalacia. I'm sure I mispronounced that. She struggled to breathe and lacked the energy to gain weight, leading to months of tube feeding. And Lily said she became extremely anxious during this period, practically force feeding her at times, because doctors warned that Ethel was losing weight and her previous pregnancy loss made this fear even more intense. So eventually, after medical treatment and operations, Ethel recovered and she is now healthy. And a second daughter, Marnie Rose, was born just 2 years later in 2013.
Yeah. So Lily later admitted that motherhood was a lot harder than she was expecting and that she felt unprepared for parenting.
Yeah.
She hadn't really been around babies before having her own. She says, quote, neither of my parents were particularly good at parenting. So it wasn't a skill set that I had. I sort of assumed that it would just all happen naturally, and it didn't. And I think that was the trigger for my postnatal depression. My whole childhood, I'd been dreaming of this 2.4 children, living in the country, everything, just falling into place, and that I'd be this perfect mom. And it didn't happen. And I was just very shocked and disappointed.
Yeah.
And I think in the UK, they call it postnatal depression, but it's the same as postpartum.
And, that's obviously, it's not surprising that she experienced that, given that what she suffered with losing George and then her first daughter having this crazy health issue. It just would be extremely traumatic.
Yeah.
So by 2012, after 2 babies and years away from music, Lily said that she felt she had lost her sense of self. The normal domestic life, while filled with love for her children, left her, quote, unfulfilled professionally. She was also facing financial pressures to continue to support her family.
A couple things here I want to talk about.
Okay.
She has always kind of struggled with her relationship with money. Talks about this in the book. She's quite honest about it. The fact that she likes to spend money, she goes into debt. At one point, she talks about how, this is just from her early years, she did not ever adhere to any parking rules, and she racked up $10,000 worth of parking fines and tickets to the point where she was like, it was like she had to go to court and there was bail or something. Like, it was bad. It was really bad. And like when she got one of her first checks, the first thing she did was like pay her mom back for her tickets. She has an avoidant response to all that. She like hides bills under her bed, everything. And so then I think when she does need to go back to work, when she does decide to go back to work, she really did need to financially support their family. Sam was not the breadwinner.
Yeah, I feel like this might be a really stupid aside, but I'm gonna share it anyway. I feel like I remember there was one time in college when my friend and I had an essay due the next day, and I remember it was like getting late, and I was like, we have to do this essay. And my friend went to bed and she was just like, no, I'm just going to like talk to the professor. And I this moment clicked for me when I realized that there are certain people who they just kind of like don't see the rules as like they don't have this instinct to follow the rules. And I remember I also talked to this other friend who talked about how he got into a bunch of credit card debt, and then he was just like, yeah, but they just eventually like you just negotiate with the debt collectors. And it's just like there's some people, their brains just function differently when it comes to like abiding by, I don't know, like the rules.
Yeah, I think some people don't have crushing anxiety. Or if they do, they are able to compartmentalize it or put it away.
Some people are master compartmentalizers,
yeah, I mean,
and are truly unbothered.
I think for me, the essay example, the stress of not doing the essay is worse to me than whatever consequences from not doing it.
It was the first time it had entered my brain that you could just not do. Like for me, it's if I don't do it, it's a failure. It's an F. I'm not going to try to talk to the professor to turn it in later.
I think I became a little bit better at that type of, not following the rules when I began to fail classes in college. I never failed any classes, but to get D's and C's.
You did get some D's and C's?
Yes, totally. I got a couple. Let me just tell you, D's get degrees. I'll be the first to let you know. I knew that in my particular field, my GPA was not going to matter. So in my last year or two, I absolutely got some C's. I think I got 1 or 2 D's. Okay. But anyway, it was kind of a powerful moment. I mean, taking back my power.
Yeah, I'm so impressed.
Thank you. Anyway, I knew you would be. So anyway, back to Lily.
So after a few years hiatus, so she says in her memoir, which Chandler read, her memoir, the dichotomy between going back to work as a pop star and being a mother to 2 very young children was my waking daily reality, and I found it blindingly difficult, essentially. And she described herself during this time as in a fragile state, very lonely and lost.
So after this hiatus, she reemerges in late 2013, kind of in a low-key way. She does a cover of Somewhere Only We Know, the Keen song.
I came across. The song kind of does slap.
It's an incredible song. I never want to hear your rendition. And it was for a John Lewis commercial, which is John Lewis ads are very famous in the ad world.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For what?
Because people wait all year for them. It's what's going to be this year's John Lewis ad? They're always just they're sweet and about animated teddy bears and stuff.
Nerd alert.
Sorry. That's just what my brain
just some industry intel.
Her return, though, was not necessarily smooth sailing.
To music.
Yeah. So she released the single Hard Out Here, and it had a feminist chorus, it's hard out here for a bitch. And it was sort of pointing a message at the music industry's sexism and body shaming, and she intended it to be satire, but it just...
Satire?
Satire?
You said sapphire.
I think I said satire.
No, you 100% said sapphire.
She intended it to be satire.
Keep it all in, and you're going to see.
She intended it to be satire, and it just totally backfired on her.
Yeah.
Maybe I think I mixed up the backfired F with the satire R.
Well, thank you for coming clean.
Yeah, I think maybe some dyslexia happened there. And I'm glad you shamed me. I hope you feel taller now.
Oh my. Punching down, honestly, is a habit I would love to leave in 2025.
I mean, I know you won't.
Okay. So there's backlash on social media over this song. And it kind of was a little bit like Katy Perry's disastrous song, Women's World.
It's a woman's world.
I play that song every morning as I get ready, and I feel so empowered.
I know you do. You do. It's your mom. It's your Louise Hay.
Anyway, we'll play a little bit of Hard Out Here for everyone, except those watching on YouTube.
Do you have one feminist anthem song that you like?
No, I find all of them to be so cheesy.
I know. That's the problem.
It's like I
appreciate the intent.
I definitely appreciate women in the professional sphere, and I want us to continue making money. I want
anyone believing this? Is anyone buying this?
I want women to be able to have bank accounts.
I have binders full of women. That's what this is giving.
What is binders full?
From Mitt Romney, where he was asked about women in his campaign or something, and he said, "I have binders full of women."
Okay. I love that women can have property, can have their own credit cards.
You like the credit cards too?
Yeah, I sure do. But I don't need any sort of girl boss, nomenclature.
Yeah.
I don't need any of that stuff. I find it to be so cringy.
Even when our favorite songwriters, Miss Taylor Swift, do it,
I mean, The Man for me is a turd.
Yeah.
It's a big skip.
Okay. Well, moving on though.
Yeah.
Moving on to May 2014, where she releases her third album, Sheezus, which was a nod to Kanye West's Yeezus. And on the surface, this was Lily returning to the pop game with her signature style of, pop lyrics. And she talks actually a little bit about the styling of this album, and she says that she was just so busy being a mom and trying to also release new music. If you look up the album cover for Sheezus, this might add more context as I'm talking. But she was just like, I'm passing this off to like somebody else. Somebody else can like come up with the mood board. And it's quite a departure, I feel like, from her previous stuff.
Okay, yeah, this is certainly different.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think she felt as connected to the imagery from Sheezus.
Yeah.
I want to talk now about what starts to happen on the Sheezus tour while she's touring this album, because this is where the wheels come off the bus and her mental health really kind of starts to unravel.
Okay.
So she's on tour with her band, with everybody, and her Sam is at home, taking care of their two daughters. And she really just spirals into some destructive habits here. She says she was self-medicating with, alcohol and Adderall. And then she also goes on to say that she started to kind of use sex as a way to self-medicate. And she started to sleep with women and to, step out on her marriage. And she kind of told herself.
She hires female sex workers.
Yeah. She tells herself that, it's not cheating because it's with women. I don't think it doesn't always stay with women. And then she says, she really just wanted him to come get her. And she kind of didn't really even care about him finding out because she just didn't care. It was so self-destructive.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a little bit like a cry for help.
Yeah.
And she wanted him to come save her.
Right.
But you know what? Who did come save her?
Okay, so this story is really quite crazy because she's in this self-destructive period, and she goes to a party in LA, and she's just getting super drunk, and she's just not well at all. And at one point, she says that like her and Orlando Bloom have been flirting. She's like straddling him, I think, and like sitting on top of him, and then she goes in to like lean in closer to his face, but she ends up like headbutting him, and then knocking her head back and hitting something else, and she like passes out, and she wakes up to, I think maybe Kate Hudson and Chris Martin like standing over her. She's in the kitchen. They're like trying to like tend to her.
Oh,
Chris Martin then drives her home. She wakes up in the morning and there's a note on her fridge that says, Lily, call me, Chris, with his phone number.
Crazy.
And she calls him and he says, hey, like, come out to have Sunday lunch with Gwyneth and I. And they're in the process of unconscious uncoupling.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, they're full, that the conscious uncoupling is like happening.
Okay.
But she goes out to their house in, I believe, Malibu or wherever it's beachfront.
No, Malibu. Was Malibu.
And she says that, it was really wonderful. They have this amazing garden that goes from the top of the cliff down to the sea. And Chris is just like really, Chris and Gwyneth are both really nice to her. And he grabs her and says, come on, like, I want to take you for a walk. Let's go down. I'll take you for a walk down by the beach. And I was like, okay, this is Lily. She says, okay, I thought, he's very sweet for taking the time. And what she doesn't realize at the time is that this is kind of his gentle way of saying, you need help. Like when they get down to the beach, he kind of says, clearly things are not right and you're not well.
Yeah.
And I think that like, I don't know, she says that she'll always be really grateful to Chris Martin, in that time. And he's not really mentioned as like her good friend before this or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. That story, another point for Chris Martin. I don't necessarily expect a guy who's not romantically involved with another woman, who's not really close friends with her, to kind of take it upon himself to try to like have a little intervention with her when he sees that she's clearly unwell.
Yeah, and I also think that it would be so easy, to witness this behavior and honestly just be like, oh, not my problem. Not
kind of messy.
Not my circus, not my monkey. And the fact that Gwyneth and, Chris essentially staged this intervention. I mean, I'm gonna give all the credit to Gwyneth. I'm sure it was all her idea. But she probably just knew how mortified Lily would be if she brought it up.
Yeah.
So she was like, let's just do lunch. I'll have a macrobiotic meal and you guys can take a jaunt to the sea. That was a stupid thing to say, but honestly, let's just keep it in. Whatever.
No, I mean, I'm giving all the credit to Chris because I think, I think at one point they were on the same record label, and obviously he's from the UK,
Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense.
I find this, you're just Sorry, are you hurt by the fact that I can't give credit to Gwyneth in this moment? Do you
yeah,
feel like
I'm personally offended.
Yeah. I don't know. I find this story to be very touching.
Yeah. Okay, I have to tell you, now that Thanksgiving week is complete, one thing that just made it extra cozy and luxurious for me was Macy's Cashmere. I think a big holiday hack with Christmas approaching is wear beautiful holiday outfits that are also cozy. They don't just need to be chic. And I just loved wearing Macy's Cashmere. I had sweaters that could easily transition from day to night. Maybe instead of with jeans during the day, I would throw on a silk skirt. Just cashmere pieces that were so effortless from Macy's and also so cozy. Another thing I love about Macy's Cashmere is they have so many silhouettes in over 40 colors. Macy's Friends and Family Sale is going on right now through December 11th with 30 to 50% off fine jewelry. So I'm going to buy some new pieces to add an extra layer of luxe and sparkle to all of my cashmere looks. And with 15% off beauty, I might even treat myself to a new fragrance.
You kind of need a new signature scent. I've been saying that.
I love entering the new year with a fresh signature scent.
The holidays are upon us, and if you still have names on your list, don't panic. Uncommon Goods makes holiday shopping stress-free and joyful, with thousands of one-of-a-kind gifts you really cannot find anywhere else. Everything feels meaningful and personal, never rushed or last minute. They look for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the US, with so many pieces created by independent artists and small businesses. The gift I'm obsessed with this year is the Instant Holiday Cocktail Cubes. They're flavor-infused cubes you just drop into champagne or bourbon to make festive, seasonal cocktails in seconds. It's such a fun, easy gift for anyone who loves to host. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 back to a nonprofit partner of your choice. So don't wait. Make this holiday the year you give something truly unforgettable. Take 15% off your next gift. Go to uncommongoods.com/pop. That's uncommongoods.com/pop for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
So she says that she was at her lowest of lows at this time. And when asked if she wanted to get caught cheating, Lily said, "No, I was pretty brazen with all my behavior. I think I just didn't care. Actually, maybe I did want to get caught. Maybe I wanted Sam to rescue me. I wanted him to find out about these things and say, enough is enough. You're coming home." So Lily and Sam divorce, but not before he made her tell him every single detail of every infidelity because he needed to hear it all. They agreed to break up while sitting in a dark corner of their favorite Italian restaurant in the summer of 2015. As she describes it in the book, we were both miserably sad. We were both in tears. We both felt some kind of relief.
Yeah. And I wish I could say this is kind of the end of some of her troubles.
No.
But it's not. In November 2015, she's trying to sort out her life. And she meets a man who, she refers to in the book as record industry executive. No other, moniker. She wanted to name him, but her publisher's lawyer said she couldn't. And I think if I remember right, she says like, "Hey, I'm going to check into a facility or I'm going to start going to rehab tomorrow." And he says, "Okay, great. Let's celebrate tonight." Then they get drunk on some tequila. And, the next day she has a bad feeling. She doesn't really remember getting home. She decides to write it off. She met up with him again for work and alcohol is involved. And she wakes up to find him trying to have sex with her in a hotel room. She's naked in his bed.
Yeah.
She once again felt compelled to write it off. I think that's unfortunately, an instinct that women have is that they just want to, write it off. But she does go to her lawyer in London and she signs an affidavit saying what happened. She kind of wanted to know that
it was on record.
It was on record. And she wasn't ready to take it any further than that, but that it was on record that this had happened.
Yeah. She also endured some terrifying stalking. So there's a man named Alex Gray who began harassing her in 2008. And he ultimately broke into her London house in 2015 while she and her children were sleeping.
This story is crazy.
Yeah.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
So she is dating somebody new post-divorce. His name is Dan. And they're in bed together. I don't think they're having sex or anything, but they're in bed. And she remembers that he was kind of spending the night in sort of a covert way because it wasn't time for him to meet her daughters. So she had her bedroom door locked because she didn't want her daughters to come in and see a random guy. So they're in bed together. It's 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And all of a sudden someone's banging on her bedroom door.
This is insane.
And she's so confused. She thinks it's Sam, her ex-husband. She thinks, oh my God, Sam's come by the house. he knows that I'm with another guy.
Yeah.
He knows, even though we're divorced or whatever, he's so upset that I didn't tell him or whatever. And she opens the door. She goes and opens the door. And this guy comes in and starts screaming at her and says, you know who I am. How do you not know who I am? And to the point where he's not immediately violent, to the point where Dan, her new boyfriend, says, like, who is this guy? He says you know him. And she's like, I don't know him. I do not know him.
Yeah.
And she says, like, I don't know him. You have to get him out of here. She thought that she maybe he potentially had a knife because he was kind of concealing something in his jacket. Her boyfriend, Dan, is able to get him out of the house. They call the police. The police come. They're kind of not buying it. They're kind of like, whatever. She realizes that her purse is gone, that he's like stolen her purse, this guy. So the police are like, oh yeah, well, it was just a robbery. She then goes back into like her correspondence and sees that the guy who came to stalk her was actually this man named Alex Gray, who's been emailing her crazy things about how he says he wrote the fear.
Wow.
And that he wants to kill her.
I think that would have been even more horrific in the moment for her. She'd realized who it was.
Totally. So he had started harassing her under the handle Lily Allen RIP and claimed to have written the song The Fear.
Yeah.
And it increased from letters to abusive rants, accusations, like sending letters to management. She says he would drop off these letters at my record company, my management offices, my sister's shop and flat. It was freaking me out a bit, and I'm not easily scared. So the fact that I went to the police with the letters shows how serious I felt I was. But the police really
do nothing.
Yeah, they so I think eventually he is prosecuted and like sent away to a mental facility. In fact, she goes to his bail hearing, and where the judge says, should I grant you bail or whatever? And he continues to make threats at her in the courtroom. Wow. But she says, I was so grateful that he did that because it showed that he was really not well, mentally not well and unsafe and dangerous.
Did he threaten you?
He did. When the judge said, why should I grant you bail today? He said, because the world would be a better place without her. And that's what I'm here to do.
I think like all of these stalking cases, we've talked about a few of them on our podcast. It's just so scary. And really like the consequences
can be deadly.
Consequences can be deadly, but also there's not very many consequences before something deadly happens.
Yeah, completely.
Which is so scary.
Terrifying. So after Lily says, after this moment, she kind of hits rock bottom. And in 2016 and 2017, she begins writing new music, channeling the turbulence of her recent years into her songs. She releases her fourth album, No Shame, in 2018. This album had her at her most vulnerable and honest, writing about heartbreak, motherhood, insecurity, and substance abuse in a style that read like diary entries.
Yeah. And I'll just say, like, post this stalking around 2016, she really, there was the rock bottom with Chris Martin, and then there's the rock bottom that comes like post divorce, post everything else, where I think she like checks herself into a facility.
Wow. Yeah.
For all of these things. And this is where I think she really does get sober.
Yeah. So the album's lead single, Trigger Bang, addressed stepping away from her toxic party life, while the song 3 imagined her life from her little daughter's perspective. Critics loved the album, noting it as a brave and mature evolution for Lily, and it received much better reviews than Jesus. No Shame also won the Mercury Prize, which is the British Album of the Year, very prestigious award. But it didn't have much commercial success. It peaked at number 8 in the UK, making it her lowest selling album at that point, but it had a ton of critical acclaim.
So I like listened to all of her albums.
Yeah.
This one, it has a couple that I really like, but it's not, maybe fewer earworms.
Okay. So during this time, she releases her memoir. My Thoughts Exactly, to accompany No Shame. She wrote about many things that were mentioned in the album, her grief, trauma, and infidelities, but also dropped bombshells like a previously unknown affair with the Oasis member Liam Gallagher while he was married.
So this is a quick little story. It's so crazy. She has sex with him while they're at a festival in Japan, I want to say.
Okay.
And he's married at the time. And I think he says to her after this, like, you can never say anything about this because of so-and-so. I'm blanking on his wife's name. Years later, maybe it was only months later, she gets a call from him randomly where he says, hey, I'm on the phone with you, nothing happened between us, right?
Wait, for real? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
So what did she do in that moment? Did
she was like, no, I think she said like, yeah, whatever, nothing happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
But then she's
it's
talks
exposed.
About it in the album.
Yeah.
Do you know if he and his wife were together when this book came out?
I did the work, but not that much work today.
Yeah, okay.
I think the book is very candid. Obviously, I have, I have all these stories now from it that, you wouldn't know about her before this. And she says that she really wrote it for her daughters because she, it's not for her, it's for her daughters. She didn't want them to, I think, find out things from the tabloid.
Yeah.
She'd rather them just hear it from her.
Mm-hmm. She also gives a quote where she kind of says that if you tell everything there is to know, then people can't really come after you. And so this is her, describing that.
Basically, I sort of figured out when my marriage broke down and things were really bad that actually if you just tell everyone everything there is to know, then they can't come after you and they can't follow you anymore.
So you own
they're
the
not going to
story.
fiend anything more sensational because you're like, I was sleeping with prostitutes.
And in talking a little bit more about her choice to get sober, she says, I can really miss those extreme highs. I miss being on the pyramid stage at Glastonbury and rushing my tits off. I know that I will never experience that again, and there's a sadness that comes with that. But I am level. I'm no longer having really terrible long periods of time of absolute despair.
She also shares some of the best parts of sobriety, saying in 2024, I'm a much more connected and present parent, which is amazing. I got a text from Ethel yesterday, her daughter, and she was very clear. These are the things I'm feeling. I'm sad. I'm upset because of this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm winning at life. She's naming her emotions and she's asking me for help. My relationship with my kids specifically is much better since I got sober.
Moving on to more recent Lily Allen times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy kind of now doing this deep dive on her, knowing what we know, listening to her book, knowing what I know about, her most recent, marriage to David Harbour. So in 2019, she matches with David Harbour on Raya and they hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
David says they connect over a similar humor and her vibrant spirit. He says, quote, Lily lives with a color in a deeper way than most. She has such a presence and star quality.
In September 2020, so this is a year after they met, they eloped in Las Vegas. So they got married by an Elvis impersonator with Lily's daughters in attendance as the only guests. The low-key wedding seemed like a perfect reflection of who Lily was. They just got in and out afterwards. As a new stepdad, David seemed to bond with Ethel and Marnie, and the new family attended the Stranger Things season 4 premiere together in 2022. Lily at this time was splitting her life between London and New York since David worked more in New York. During these years, she worked on projects outside of music. So in 2019, she made a cameo playing herself in the film How to Build a Girl. And in 2021, she made her debut on London's West End stage. Lily impressed theater critics and even earned a Laurence Olivier Award nomination for Best Actress. Around this time, she and her longtime best friend, Makita Oliver, launched a podcast in 2023 called Miss Me.
So we all know about this play now. We all know about what was happening during this play.
Mm-hmm.
The play, is pretty soon thereafter getting married, about a year after them getting married when...
Really?
Yeah, it's in 2021 that she's in the play and they got married in 2020.
So
I think they got together 2019, 2018 maybe?
I get, no, 2019 they get together. 2019 they match on Raya, 2020 is when they get married. I guess it kind of tracks with a David Harbour that he's not going to be able to keep that together for so long,
Yeah.
So by 2023, fans began speculating that Lily's marriage to David Harbour was on the rocks. She had gone quiet about her husband online, even unfollowing him on Instagram. That's a move that definitely can tell you something.
Yeah.
In interviews and on her podcast, Lily dropped hints that things were not going well for her. And in March 2024, she talked about the types of men she had pursued. She said, because I will always just, have daddy issues, don't I? I just want a big old hairy daddy forever. That's all I want. I know who my dad was, and my dad was sort of there, but not there. So I think that yours was slightly a fantasy, whereas mine was like trying to recreate something that existed, hence the obsessions.
She talks about this as well in the album, about how those daddy issues have kind of, fully informed all the men she's dated.
Mm-hmm.
Quick little story about, at one point, I think she even dated or at least slept with a man who knew her dad, who was and her dad sort of freaked out when he heard about this. And that man used to be married to Sam Taylor Johnson.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Who who's married to.
Yeah, who's married to that young guy.
The young guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, just crazy. But his dad, when her dad found out, he was upset about it, but then it sort of became like a running joke.
Interesting.
And I think that was obviously that's, kind of gross.
Yeah, Definitely. So in February 2025, multiple sources confirmed that Lily and David had separated, with one insider telling People that her marriage had been crumbling and that they have split. Lily sought help for her mental health to regroup and preemptively shot down rumors that it was substance abuse related. She said, "I'm not going to rehab. I've not relapsed. I don't know who's spreading these vicious rumors, but they are not true."
Then in, this most recent fall of 2025, Lily tells Vogue that the past few months have been turbulent, but that she's trying to stay really strong for her daughters. She's asked if David would remain in the girls' lives. She says, "You'll have to ask him." She also noted that her and Sam Cooper, have a friendly co-parenting rhythm.
During this time, she poured her heartbreak into her music. She recorded her fourth album, West End Girl, in 16 days in December 2024, where she takes listeners through the past 4 years of her life. It is, as the New York Times says, a salacious account of a marriage in which a husband systematically cheats on and gaslights his wife.
Lauren and I talked about the album a couple episodes ago, kind of when it first came out and it was making its splash. I love it. I'm still listening to it all the time. And I'm just so happy to see that it's getting so much continued traction and acclaim, because she really deserves it. And I think I go back to the fact that she picked up her whole life and moved for David Harbour and started this whole new life with him. And for him to really then just begin to dismantle their marriage a year in, it's unforgivable.
No, it absolutely is. And I think what's so striking about the album is that it's confessional in a way that most songwriting is not. Like most songwriting, there's storytelling happening, and there's elements of, fiction. And in this, it's just it's basically diary entries set to music.
It's very literal.
It's very literal, yeah.
And I think now, having done this research on her, having listened to her book, read her book, I think that I have a lot more empathy for her. I know people have said, she cheated on her husband, and she did. Like she was not faithful to Sam Cooper.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we've kind of painted a complete picture of who she is, but I can't help but feel kind of deeper empathy for her. And I think we made some comments when we were first talking about the album about how, if your husband wants an open marriage, run to the divorce lawyer's office. But kind of now knowing her story and the men that, that have been in her life, and kind of the way that her relationships have failed, she probably really did want this one to work.
Yeah.
And so when this idea was introduced, it was I love this man deeply and I want this to work. And so I don't know, I have more empathy for her.
Yeah. Did you know that on TikTok, we have a clip of us talking about the open marriage, and we're like, we're not open-minded when it comes to open marriages. And there's a lot of people that have remixed that like people in open marriages that are responding. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
And there's therapists for open relationships that are weighing in on us not being open-minded. Anyway,
I have empathy. I'm not any more open-minded on open marriages.
Yeah. Well, that aside, and our TikTok aside, The Guardian gave West End Girl a 5-star review, calling it a gobsmacking autopsy on a marital betrayal that is cathartic and brutally candid, but also stylistically varied with melodies and sparkle. In its own way, West End Girl really is this culmination of everything Lily Allen represents: unfiltered honesty, dark humor, and turning these chaotic parts of life into art. Rolling Stone said West End Girl has made listeners reassess their own experiences of love and loss by witnessing Lily lay hers bare. And one of the great parts of the album, I think, is really when she discusses, I think it's in the song "Let You Win," and she says, as long as I can just say what happened to me, I can leave with my dignity.
Yeah.
That's not the exact lyric.
Keep your secrets.
Yeah. And what I find that's great to me about this album is not just the salacious quality of it. I think the songs really slap.
Yeah,
Dallas Major got so stuck in my head. So many of these songs are really, really good on their own.
Yeah, and they're honestly lovely, at times a little sad, but lovely to listen to.
Yeah, so if you have not listened to West End Girl, what are you waiting for? Please, as we conclude this episode, turn on West End Girl, give it a spin. And I will say, not happy for Lily that essentially this has been the turn of events. I'm wishing her a stable future. I'm wishing that, we get her Life of a Showgirl, her In Love happy album.
Her Opalite.
Yeah, her Opalite. I hope she only has, I hope her Onyx nights are coming to an end or have concluded. I like how we just have to end on a note about Taylor Swift. We try to talk.
I thought we had enough, and then you just continued with her Onyx Nights.
We try to talk about other people, but all roads lead back to
it's a sickness, it's a mental
to
sickness.
Taylor Swift. And with that said, to conclude this Alan deep dive, we're so excited for the Eras Tour documentary to come out. Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
So if you're feeling frugal, stream Pluto TV, stream Pluto TV, stream Pluto TV for free.
Stream blockbuster hits like 21 Jump Street, Ted, The Expendables, and so much more on Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Is this thing on? I'm Caitlin Bristow, host of Off the Vine podcast, where I get real. Well, maybe a little too real sometimes, with my friends and celeb guests from Bachelor franchise and beyond. I'm talking guests like Jonathan Van Ness, Nikki Glazer, Wells Adams, Elise Myers,
just like in this like business jacket, like I would love some tacos.
Heidi D'Amelio, Big Brother's Taylor Hale,
I have to bring it up because it happened and we're going to get through it.
What'd I do?
and so many more. So come hang out with us, hear ridiculous confessions, and get a little vulnerable because you know what? We're all just floating on this weird little planet together. Follow, rate, and review Off the Vine podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts.